Hello everyone! For now, this will be our last class on the premier races of Eorzea. I understand that we've seen a large immigration of a couple other species to our homeland recently, but until they settle in more comfortably, I'd like to cover a still recent addition to our continent of Aldenard. So join me, as we dive headfirst into the polarizing lives of the Eorzea. While the other races we've covered so far had some kind of long storied history within Eorzea, the Eorzea are still rather new and fresh-faced as far as the land's lore is concerned. Eorzea have been known to travel westward towards the continent of Aldenard, but were only ever seen on extremely rare occasions, making them exotic to some and terrifying to others. It's only during the terrorizing of land by Garlemald and the recent civil unrest within the countries of Othard that we've seen Eorzea moving to Eorzea en masse. Between invading forces and failing politics, thousands of Eorzea sought to move westward in search of safety. You've likely seen or met many Eorzea in the past few decades because of these changes, and from this point on, it's safe to say they'll be instrumental in our lane's history from now on. The most striking differences between the Eorzea and other races of the world is their scaled appearance. These thick scales cover various parts of their bodies, but are mostly centered on their heads and tails. Their tails are known to come in various shapes and sizes, with their horns usually coming to some form of point or points. Aside from making their visage more imposing, their horns have been found to increase their sense of perception and spatial awareness, as the horns seem to catch subtle changes in the environment and atmosphere. Their scales have given them a somewhat notorious reputation to some cultures. Many people seeing an Eorzea for the first time mistake them for being related to Scalekin or natives of Dravania. But this is a false observation, as the Eorzea have absolutely zero relations to dragons or any variety of scaled monster in the world. For example, while dimorphism between genders isn't uncommon in nature, it's very much represented in the size difference between their men and women. Eorzea men are known to tower over most other races, much like Elzen or Rogadin, whilst an Eorzea female is much more petite and resembles the Hyur in stature more often than not. Likewise, it's been observed that the Eorzea have a unique and sometimes colorful ring that is found against the iris and/or sclera of their eyes. The abilities granted to them by their horns, combined with their unique gender-based genetics and interesting ocular designs, has not been observed in any other scaled species in the world, making the Eorzea their own unique race. However, this does not mean they don't have a story to tell. The history, or rather the creation myth surrounding the Eorzea, is actually well recorded due to each generation having storytellers dedicated to keeping their traditions alive. Their story starts in their homeland, the Azim Steppe, with entities called the Dawn Father Azim and the Dusk Mother Nama. When the world was created, these two gods disputed over who should rule the new lands. They thus created the Eorzea to serve as their soldiers in a holy war against one another. This created the two known subraces, with the Dawn Father creating the tribe known as the Rain, and the Dusk Mother creating the tribe known as the Zela. The Rain and Zela waged war on behalf of their creators for an unknown amount of time, hoping to champion their respective god. But the fighting came to a surprising end as the two tribes began to understand and even love one another, creating a new generation of Eorzea born of empathy and respect. The Dawn Father and Dusk Mother were so moved by this display of compassion they gave up on trying to rule the world, leaving the lands in the custody of their beloved creations and children as they returned to the heavens. It's a beautiful story of love triumphing over tragedy, and our only record of ancient Eorzea history, leading us to the Eorzea of the current age. Like the races covered so far, the Rain and Zela are two racial types of Eorzea found in the world with fundamental differences in both appearance and philosophy. One of the few traditions that persist in both tribes is seen in their attire. Quite often you'll see an Eorzea wearing armor, clothes, or belts with obvious scaled patterns on them. While many assume it's to reflect the scales on their bodies, the pattern actually symbolizes good health and vitality in their culture. In the same breath, any mild tears or damage to their clothes are usually left alone, since they view such marks as proof of experience. However, that's where the similarities begin to end, and to understand this, we'll start with the existence of the tribe known as the Rain. The Rain, also known as Children of the Dawnfather, distinguish themselves with brighter colored scales and horns. These colors are usually a form of white or tan, but are known to get closer to a brownish color in dim light. Sometime after their creation myth, the Rain left the Azim Steppe and spread throughout the continent of Othard. They were quick to adopt the Here's common tongue, and many different groups of Rain began to live varied lives based on the regions they settled in. In the first few years of their travels, however, the Rain were mostly met with hostility due to their aggressive appearance. This caused some to retreat underwater and build a society with the turtle-like beastmen called Kojin. The others that persisted began to forge bonds with the surface races. The racial tension only began to simmer once a prominent warlord from Yangshe took them in as vassals after being thoroughly impressed by their wisdom and skill. After that, many Rain became respected as they were seen as peerless warriors under the lords they served. Some then traveled further east to the land of Koshu and became known as legendary blade masters. This history tracks with their physiology. The Rain aren't the strongest Aura when it comes to raw power, but what they lose in strength, they win in dexterity, making them surprisingly agile. As they became accustomed to living and mingling with other races, the Rain began to learn and teach. This opening of the mind made them into reliable mages and wise scholars. The Rain are now thoroughly absorbed into the cultures of Doma and Hingashi as valuable assets and kin. Their naming conventions reflect this, as they've adopted similar naming patterns to Eastern societies. With this newfound confidence, the Rain began to slowly spread throughout the world, with the bulk of their numbers being a direct response to recent Garlean invasion. Their original loyal service to the Dawnfather is reflected in their service to whomever they pledged themselves to. There are countless stories of noble Rain giving their all to advise and uplift whatever person, place, or cause they believe in. Next, we move on to their cousins, the Zayla. Also called the Children of the Dusk Mother, the Zayla are identified by their darker scales, which are mostly in shades of dark blue, purple, and black. The Zayla have remained in their ancestral home of the Azim Steppe as nomads, and do not look on the other races with the same patience and respect the Rain do. In fact, if you're unable to prove your worth through actions alone, then you're less than dirt in their eyes, because even the ground beneath one's feet serves a purpose. This love of action and hate for politics is commonplace in most tribes of Zayla, to varied degrees. This is also partly why they've only recently began to develop a written language in the past couple hundred years. With no universal formula, each tribe can have its own written characters, making translations difficult if not impossible without talking to the tribe it came from. This simple nomadic life suits them fine though, as most Zayla tribes live and die by the codes of their respective groups, the most common rules being to respect the Azim Steppe and honor the Dusk Mother. And the best way to honor their goddess is through shows of strength. Their love of combat has left many races calling the Zayla barbaric, but it's this lust for battle that's honed them into machines of war. While you won't find many mages amongst the Zayla, you will find an excess of them mastering various forms of weaponry and martial arts. It was rare, but some groups of Zayla left the Azim Steppe in search of strong opponents, greater challenges, and to satisfy other desires. To many of these Zayla, there was no greater beast to defeat than that of the unknown, which is why we've steadily seen more Zayla in the world outside of the Azim Steppe. But like most descendants, the newer generations of Zayla that grew up outside of the Azim Steppe have steadily begun to get absorbed into their new cultures, making them more civil. Currently within the Azim Steppe, there are roughly 51 known tribes still living their best lives, with each and every one of them having their own culture and dogma. Some are passive and tolerant, whilst others are just as brutal and violent as the stories paint them to be. Unfortunately, there is not enough time to cover the differences of all of these tribes, but I may cover the currently known Zayla tribes in greater detail at a later date. That being said, the number of tribes is known to change from time to time. This is because of some tribes absorbing others into their ranks, if not killing them outright. Though one thing all of the tribes agree upon is the Nadam. The Nadam is a combat ritual in which any tribe wishing to stand as the dominant group may participate, though not all tribes attend. The Nadam simulates open warfare, and the one who emerges undefeated is crowned the Kagan, leader of the Azim Steppe and overlord of all tribes. Because of this, no one leader sits at the top for their entire life, not with so many fighters eager to prove themselves in the eyes of gods and men. But an old Zayla will warn you against recklessness. They'll admit that violence lives deep in the hearts of all those who crave glory. They'll say never to delight in violence, but also never to deny your nature either. That being said, the Aura have started to become more than a race restricted to the continent of Othard. They've begun to spread far and wide, with both Rain and Zayla showing the tenacity and skill of their species. Despite the racial stigma they face from time to time, they've proven themselves capable fighters and survivalists, making any who join your ranks an invaluable asset and loyal friend. Good day! Thank you for staying to the end of my lesson. It's my hope that you found something new and interesting in between my ramblings. If you did, consider subscribing and liking this video. Doing that is the easiest way to tell me I'm doing a good job at feeding your thirst for knowledge. If there is a topic you'd love to learn more about that I've yet to cover, let me know in the comments and I'll see where my research takes me. I'd also encourage you to share what you learned here with your friends and adventuring companions, and if they're interested, bring them to the next assembly. I hope to see you and any other curious travelers in the next lecture. Till then, stay safe, my friends.